Today I'm going to talk about some of the biggest jewelry and engagement ring trends for 2025. Of course, when it comes to trends, we're always going to see a few things carry over from years past, but in general, I would say one of the biggest departures from jewelry we've seen in the past is getting away from the very fine and dainty look, especially with engagement rings, to something a lot more bold, sculptural, and kind of in your face and modern. One thing that's kind of different from years past is that a lot of the trends I'm going to cover off today, I'm seeing sometimes all in one ring or other piece of jewelry. So I feel like this is a very bold departure with a lot of messages, and people are really ready for something totally different than we've seen in the past. One of the things that people really talk about when it comes especially to engagement rings are the shape of stones. Various shapes of stones really come in and out over the years, and I would say moving forward we're definitely going to see some of the shapes that have been abandoned in recent years but were really big in the 90s and early 2000s. In particular, I think the Marquise, thank you Selena Gomez and her recent engagement ring from Benny Blanco, and the pear shape are going to be very, very big in the next year or two. With the Marquise in particular, we had seen it a little bit in recent years, but it was more set east to west to give it a very contemporary feel. Of course, like we saw with Selena Gomez's ring, she's wearing it in the very traditional way with the points up and down. And the one really cool thing about setting it this way, very much like we saw in the 90s, is that it's very, very flattering on the finger. It has a very slimming effect, and it's very elegant as well. Love it or hate it, you can't deny that the Marquise shaped diamond is definitely eye-catching. Now when it comes to the pear shape, interestingly enough, this is another cut that we see a lot of back and forth about the right way to wear it. Some really prefer it with the point up, some others say the point down. I think point down for me tends to be very flattering. I like it both ways, to be honest. But interestingly enough, we're really seeing the pear being set in even more interesting ways. I've seen it set east-west, which is kind of nice, and also very asymmetrical, kind of askew on the band. So the pear shape is definitely coming in strong, and we're gonna see it like we've never seen it before. Probably not as popular as the first two. I do think the princess is making a comeback. I touched on this with my trends for last year. We're also seeing this set askew a little bit, kind of like a diamond shape. To learn more about the princess cut and every other diamond shape and cut and all their pros and cons, be sure to check out our video on diamond shapes. As mentioned, setting a gemstone east-west has been seen a lot in recent years, but it's definitely going to come on more strong in 2025. I love this east-west effect. It really gives a chic effect to kind of any gemstone, and with the diamond in particular, it's definitely giving you that added flair of interest. I do think we're going to see some other shapes that haven't been seen east-west as much, maybe ovals, pears, as I mentioned before, and of course the emerald cut diamond as well. And overall, it's going to give the effect of something very modern to a ring that otherwise could look very traditional, but giving it that horizontal feeling kind of makes it just look a little more eye-catching and very contemporary. In general, I do think we're going to see a lot more kind of chunky, sculptural, and very artistic metal work when it comes to all jewelry and engagement rings. Definitely the thicker bands that we started to see last year, kind of like a cigar band, but just thicker bands in general. A lot more kind of wavy metal work, I would say, whether it's the band on its own like a wedding band or the band of a ring with a solitaire gemstone. And I think just metal and kind of shapes and very artistic sculptural things that look more free form, very artistic, and not so much that the ring kind of came out of a mold. Definitely something that, whether it did or not, looks like whoever worked on it is kind of a one-of-a-kind piece, very kind of inspired by, and something that's made kind of for you in particular. And then thinking about jewelry that's not an engagement ring, I think we'll definitely see this kind of chunky sculptural feel definitely cross over to people wearing a lot more bands in general, but instead of all those kind of stacked dainty bands that we saw in the past, this is going to be a lot more kind of chunky and more hardware inspired, and definitely other things from the 90s like ear cuffs and chunkier chains again, and something almost a little bit more punk and grunge inspired. Kind of a sub-trend, you could say, of this artistic sculptural feel, especially with metal work, is definitely asymmetry in general. Again, this is kind of giving your jewelry a little bit more of a one-of-a-kind inspired feeling versus kind of a one-size-fits-all. Went on the website, ordered it for myself, and everyone else I know wears it. So this kind of asymmetry is going to carry over again into bands a lot. The way way that stones are set. Again, we saw this with the pair where the stone is kind of set askew, which gives it an asymmetrical feeling. Another take on asymmetry is going to be how we pair jewelry together and how we kind of put an entire jewelry look together. So for example, more mismatched earrings, giving you that asymmetrical, more kind of artistic look, wearing two different either colored stones or shapes, or even one in gold and one in a silver metal. And another continuation of necklaces, so maybe having one side of the necklace being a different color or chain style than the other. Definitely just these more asymmetric forms and a lot more freeform looks that kind of speak to you as an individual and how you've chosen to put your whole look together. The next big trend is what I would call the floating gemstone effect, and this can definitely be done with any gemstone, color gemstone or diamonds, and I think especially with lab diamonds, it's going to give them a very kind of unique feeling. I would say this is definitely originally inspired by Scarlett Johansson's engagement ring, which was designed by famed jewelry designer Taffin, and it features a yellowish brown pear-cut diamond on a brown enamel asymmetric band. Instead of the diamond being set onto the band with prongs, which is just how we've seen jewelry and solitaire engagement rings for absolute decades, this has a very unique effect where it looks to almost be sitting on top of the band, and we're seeing this so much this year. The great thing about this trend is that there's just so many different ways to interpret it, and it can definitely fall into some of the looks that we've just discussed. So you could wear it with a chunkier band, an asymmetric kind of wavy band, similar to how ScarJo has it. Definitely the East-West gemstone. And it's also interesting because it definitely falls into some of those 90s and trends we've seen in the past, such as a tiara ring. It's kind of reminiscent of that, as well as the bypass styles that were so big in the 90s. So I've already mentioned them a little bit in the video, but I don't think lab diamonds are going anywhere anytime soon, contrary to what a lot of people are saying in the media. Obviously, yes, the price is coming down substantially. It's also making the price of natural diamonds come down substantially, but I don't necessarily think that this is a bad thing, of course, for the consumer in particular. I think one of the outcomes, of course, is that people are going to be wanting larger and larger stones because now they're affordable, which in the past they really weren't at all. The one thing I definitely think we'll see with the lab diamond is that people are going to be a lot more willing to be experimental with the colors, the shapes, the cuts, definitely some designer cuts with the lab diamonds because they are affordable now, so you have a lot more room to be experimental and kind of add more of an artistic flair to the stone itself. Also, there will likely be people who kind of want to play down the effect of having a lab diamond, so they're going to want to add that interest to the stone so that it has another talking point to it other than it being a lab diamond, and to maybe take away from the fact that lab diamonds are so big in general and can be chemically perfect. I think we'll see a lot more diamond rings that have very interesting shapes that we haven't really seen before, especially as a main stone. So for example, maybe some half moon diamonds, shield shapes, and definitely the antique cuts I think are going to continue to be going strong. The rose cuts, old mine cuts, old European cuts, because this again is really kind of distracting from the fact that maybe you've chosen a lab diamond and it's going to give it more of an interest and perhaps have people assume that it definitely is an antique. When it comes to natural diamonds, because again, I don't think these are going anywhere either, I definitely think they're going to be a lot less popular, a lot less common than in decades past where they really ruled supreme. I think consumers are definitely going to be looking to natural diamonds again for a little bit more interest. They want to set apart the fact that they've chosen a natural diamond, and so they're going to be looking at more colored stones for sure. And again, some alternative colors like different shades of yellow, orangish yellow, gray diamonds, and definitely getting back into brown diamonds, or in the past what might have been marketed as chocolate or champagne or cognac diamonds. Of course, this fits in perfectly with the Pantone color of the year, which is Mocha Mousse, a very kind of minky light brown color. And I think the great thing about brown diamonds is that they can really they're kind of chameleons. They can really take on the color of the setting, so they can have a really peachy or rosy effect, which can look really beautiful if set in yellow or rose gold. So I think people are just going to be a lot more willing to be experimental with these diamonds and be more proud that they're natural diamonds and really set them apart with unique colors. It's amazing when certain alternative stones are becoming fashionable, but of course this also means that the prices tend to skyrocket. So it's important to do your research, even look into wholesalers or different gem dealers in order to potentially source the stones on your own individually before having them set in a piece of jewelry. And this way you know you are paying the right price. Thank you so much for watching, and to learn more about gems and jewelry, be sure to visit us at winstongemsandjewelry.com.